What's up, Trader's Edge? It's Mark Sebastian, your only option with the look at the week ahead. We're going to talk about the economic stuff that's coming up, some stock-specific stuff, and my 5 names to watch. Let's start with the economics. CPI. CPI is next week. PPI is next week. Those are going to drive the conversation. CPI outside of the Fed is the most important statistic. That comes in hot. Everything's going to sell off. Now, ahead of that, right? CPI isn't on Monday or Tuesday. It's on Wednesday. Ahead of that, look at the S&P 500. Look at implied volatility on the S&P 500. It is sky high, and the market is worried. I think Monday and Tuesday are going to be red and potentially decently red. There is some pent-up fear. VIX is pricing for a major move. Volatility is pricing for a major move. I think that is going to happen. All right. Now that we've got that out of the way, that I think VIX could go to 20 next week, and the S&P could break not only 5,200 but 5,100. I think we're heading to the 50-day moving average, and then maybe we'll see, maybe 5,000, especially if CPI is bad. Something smells here, folks. But now that we've got that out of the way, let's look at the bank earnings. We've got a lot of earnings coming up. Goldman Sachs is the 15th. That is not next week. JP Morgan is on Friday. Citigroup is on Friday. Wells Fargo is on Friday. And then Goldman, Morgan Stanley, and Bank of America are the following week. So you got 3 big bank earnings that you're keeping an eye on: JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Citibank. Those are going to be the other piece that will drive markets, what they have to say, what they report, especially JP Morgan. That is a big one. All right, now let's look at the stocks I'm watching. Starts with Apple. Can it get off the mat? It seems stuck. It's range bound. It's got to break out or it's going to break down. They need to come up with something creative. I think Apple is a little stagnant. Next up, Amazon. Speaking of the opposite of stagnant, this thing is just going up and up and up. I think it might be heading to $200. Probably not next week, but don't be surprised if you see 190. And if it trades 190, it's going to 200. Next up, Google. This one's starting to look shaky. I think it's topped out. I'm looking for it to return back ahead of earnings on the 23rd. I think it's going to head back toward the 50-day moving average, up around down around 144. I'm looking for this one to pull back. Next, I obviously have the banks that we're watching, but we're going to look at Tesla. It is another one that's trying to find a floor and can't seem to break out. Tesla looks terrible. Finally, Nvidia. Nvidia might be heading below 800. It seems like it's lost its steam. SMCI, probably worse. That's the easier short. I'd play that down to about 800. Just like Nvidia, I think this one is going to fall apart. Some other things that you want to keep an eye on are gold. Gold is skyrocketing. That's usually correlated with some inflation. So I'm worried CPI is going to be hot. SLV, similar story. Lastly, keep an eye on the oil stocks. Exxon Mobil is at a new all-time high. CVX is not. So if you're going to play one bull, one bear, you might look to go long CVX instead of Exxon. CVX is an interesting play. They also do have earnings coming up in a couple of weeks, but near term, if oil's going to be taken off, I'd be playing CVX. The other one, and I saw order flow in this on Friday, is Shell. They bought 90 calls for the end of the year in Shell. This could be an interesting one. All right, folks. So there you have it. We're watching CPI. We're watching bank earnings. I've given you my 5 stocks to watch. And remember, be careful. That rate cut isn't coming. All right, folks. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I am Mark Sebastian, your only option. This was the Trader's Edge.